What's important to the everyday person about virtual reality is that it makes some pretty profound statements about what we're doing here. Why are we here? Okay, the subject today that I'd like to talk about is why should this matter to me? It's like, what's it to the average guy in the street? We know that it is a way of modeling reality and that it's competing with a materialistic viewpoint, which is about space, time, energy, mass. And in a virtual reality, you also have time, and space is computed, energy is computed, and mass is computed. Everything's computed. So the only thing they have in common is they both have time. Other than that, they're totally different ways of looking at reality. One of the interesting things from the scientific viewpoint is that virtual reality solves a lot of the paradoxes, of the big mysteries in science. Why should particles in quantum mechanics be described as probability distributions? Why should the speed of light be a speed limit in this reality frame? Why can particles tunnel out of barriers that they should not be able to tunnel out of? And on and on. How does entanglement work? And lots of these paradoxes that science just does not understand. And virtual reality gives very rational explanations. But that really doesn't concern the man in the street. He's not really that interested in the details of physics. What's important to the everyday person about virtual reality is that it makes some pretty profound statements about what we're doing here. Why are we here? If you've asked those big questions, why am I here? What's the purpose of life? What's the point of my existence? How do I know, what's right from wrong? How do you know what's ethical and what's not ethical? These are big questions. And people will tell you, well, that ethics thing and that right and wrong, that's all just relative. Some things that are right some places are wrong other places, and it just depends on what people agree to, how they see the world. Well, that's not quite true. There are some absolutes in morality, and there are some absolutes in ethics. And you do have a very specific purpose for being here, for living this life, struggling the struggles that you find yourselves in. And this lifetime is just a lifetime. You are consciousness, and consciousness is immortal. Well, now that's a big one, right? You are immortal because you are consciousness, and consciousness is immortal. Consciousness doesn't die. The avatar dies. You see, in a virtual reality, your body is a computed avatar. And that computation has to occur someplace else, or in someplace other than here, someplace not physical, because here is physical. We interpret the reality that we're in as physical, and the realities that we're not in as non-physical. So for instance, when we're in a dream, this reality we call physical, the physical universe, doesn't exist. It appears non-physical to us from the dream state. It just doesn't exist in our dream state. And when we're here, this reality seems physical, and our dream reality seems to be non-physical. So physical or non-physical is just a point of view of the observer. So if you are in this physical reality and your body, I should say, is just an avatar that's being computed, then that computer that's computing it and that consciousness that's playing that avatar both have to be non-physical. And they also have to be fundamental. If this is a virtual reality, not only is the computer and your consciousness non-physical to you, which means this idea about your brain creates consciousness is wrong, which means you as a consciousness are immortal, but it also means that you have a purpose. There's some reason for you being here. Virtual realities don't just exist for the fun of it. They don't create themselves with no purpose in mind. It's a rather large to-do to compute this physical universe, and it wouldn't be done, and the resources wouldn't be used if it weren't important. And what is your job here? What is it that brings you to this virtual reality as a consciousness to play this physical body that is your avatar? You are supposed to grow up here. You are supposed to improve the quality of your consciousness. You are supposed to evolve your consciousness. You see, the computer and the player are both consciousness. Consciousness is an information system. Part of that information system serves as a computer. Part of that information system serves as your player. Your player is playing because it needs to have experience and make choices. And by the quality of those choices, he either evolves or de-evolves the quality of his consciousness. And because this is a hard thing to do, because it means that the conscious being, when it makes good choices and learns how to make better choices, it actually becomes a different being at that point. It changes itself, who it is, what it is. It's not a matter of acting. It's not that it needs to act better or act higher quality. It has to be better. And changes in being actually change the being. So you become somebody else. But it's a difficult thing to do, to change who you are. It's something that takes a lot of experience and a lot of choices. And we have to learn how to let go of our fear, how to let go of our beliefs, how to let go of our ego in order to grow up. Now in science terms, I call this lowering entropy. Entropy is a measure of disorder. So the more disorder you have, then in your consciousness, the more disorder you have in your consciousness, then the higher the entropy in your consciousness or of your consciousness. Okay, the less disorder you have, which means the more information you have, then the lower the entropy is in your consciousness. And we can make a logical connection. There is a logical connection between lowering the entropy of your consciousness and becoming love, caring about other, letting go of ego, not being self-centered, cooperative with other people, caring, compassion. All of these things are low entropy behaviors, low entropy ways of being. And that's what you're here for, to learn to become love. Not just act loving. Again, we're not talking about acting. We're talking about being. That's why you're here. You are immortal in the sense that when this avatar dies, it's the same as when your avatar in your video game dies. When your elf dies in World of Warcraft, what happens? Well, you either go get a new elf or you resurrect the old one and you get back in the game. And that's the way it's played in real life. When your avatar dies, you get a new one. You have to keep working. Well, why do we need this virtual reality to do that? Because this virtual reality gives us choice. There's moral choice, there's consequences here. Because of the way the rule set that defines this virtual reality works, we have lots of choices. It's very interactive. The choices we make affect other people. The choices other people make affect us. Constantly you have new things to deal with. You have new crises, you have new challenges, you have new things to make choices about. And all of these choices will lead to your evolution or de-evolution, depending on whether you make them in a spirit of caring and giving and selflessness or whether you make them in a spirit of, greed, self-centeredness, fear, no trust, that side. So that's why you're here. You have multiple opportunities. You are immortal. You have a job to do. You have a mission while you're here. And in performing that mission, instead of looking at life as how can I control the things in my life to make my life turn out to be the way I want it, so that my spouse is the way I want my spouse to be, so that my children grow up the way I want them to grow up, so that my boss, does the things for me that I want him to do for me. I want to manipulate everything. I want to control everything I can to make sure things happen the way I want. Well, that's a very dysfunctional way of looking at life, but that's what most of us do. Instead, what you should do is accept the things that come, mostly the things that you cannot control. Understand that most of your reality you cannot control. Accept that. Live with that uncertainty. And what's important isn't the outcome. What's important is how you deal with that thing that's happening to you.